All right, good morning. Welcome everyone. Welcome to Coffee and Cargo. We're happy to have you guys here today. I know as people are joining, I'll do some introductions for those that are new here. My name is Rachel. I work in the marketing department here at Interlog. We have Emily Smith, who is our project manager, and then Justin Engelmeyer, who is our VP here at Interlog, and Ben Schwingel, who is our International Operations Director. So the four of us are really excited to have a guest speaker with us today. And to introduce him, his name is Tom Taylor. Welcome, Tom. He's here with Shipper's Edge, and he is a 40-year veteran in the logistics industry, and he's really going to focus today on visibility within our industry and how to better manage supply chains. So he has a lot of good knowledge and expertise with this. So we're really excited to have him here today. And before we begin, I just wanted to let you guys know that if we have some time at the end, we really try to do a Q&A. So as you're listening in today and some questions pop up on a topic we discuss or just something in general, please submit it in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. We'll try to get to as many as we can. Otherwise, we'll reach out to you all individually. So excited to have you all listen in today. It should be a good one. And Justin, I'll let you take it from here.
Perfect. So I've known Tom for quite a while here, and every time I have a conversation with him, I walk away with learning something here. So I'm looking forward to this as well. Tom does a lot more. He deals with the softwares and programs and stuff that is not my expertise. And so it's really interesting to learn from him and get to hear his opinions on some of this stuff here. Tom, do you want to start us off with a little bit of the history of this, where we're coming with in our industry, what we had previously and where we're going, what you're seeing now?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I appreciate it. So, the question that is asked probably most often from the beginning of the transport of goods is, where's my stuff? All right. When will it arrive? I mean, that's really a very important question. It's core to everything in the movement of goods with it. I think the only one that's asked more frequently is, what does it cost? So I think that those are the two questions. And since the beginning of transportation, companies have really trying to use technology to be able to answer that question, is where are my goods and when it will arrive. And I mean, it goes back to the days of telegrams and where information was, and the Pony Express and those, with being able to track and things like that. To today, you have satellite communication that is and onboard technology that can give you much greater precision down to a level of what we call hyper visibility.
Sure. And as we were discussing before here, so as we're moving through this, there's a lot of different variables within it. There's things where the tracking is very useful, and there's a lot of transparency to it. There's a few loopholes. And I believe it's on the next slide, Rachel, here, but we were talking about with it depends on the overall network and where people are starting out with, the production levels from their supplier, where that's located, and then the evolution of that shipment, where the goods are being ordered from, and then where it's destined to here. So if we get into some of that, and we want to talk about the things where, if we start out with what's most useful, what should people be looking for? Because dealing with customers every single day, I don't think they necessarily know what really is visible and what isn't visible, or what is out there for them. What are their options? What could they better themselves with? And what can they take away from that?
So it's the key to a successful visibility network is the technology side, and then it's a participation level of the providers out there. And we take as an example carriers such as any of your steamship lines. They have outstanding visibility. They have tools that you can look at any way with a satellite on them with it. But when you look at from the very beginning part of it, with starting with your supplier all the way through to the deliverable or the delivery to the end user with this, there are many, many steps involved with that. And where we're at right now with this, I'm going to say in that level of technology, is we're in the second trimester of it. With it, the first was just relying on basic technology that was out there with that, and offering it to the largest players. We're now where that is expanding out, where today you can get not just where's my, what vessel, where's my vessel, but rather, where in the process from the inland origin transportation, where is my container right now? And then when will it be? And now looking at the third trimester that we're going into now is the predictability side of it, is when can I expect it to be at the port, or when can I expect it to be loaded on the ship, or when can I expect it to be for that ship to actually make it into the harbor and vice, all the way through from start to finish on that. And that's the promising thing that's happening out there, and it is improving by month. And having that is really is really been accelerated during this COVID era and the supply chain issues that have come from it.
And so when we're talking about the predictability, and when we were discussing that previously, there's a lot of data, there's a lot of information that people are pulling from previous history to be able to predict this is how long it's going to take. This is what should happen in theory. These are the roadblocks. This is where there could be a delay here or there, and so on and so forth. And what we have done in our industry to deal with our customers is we don't have the math, all of that behind it, but we do have some ideas as to, all right, when it hits the port right now in Long Beach, and that can change depending upon the situation within the industry. It's certainly better right now than it was, a year ago or something like that. But it's always been through word of mouth as to what we're saying and what we're trying to tell them to predict and what they should be able to do. So right now, even if we don't have all of those calculations there, and as our own company, building out and mapping out a more visible solution for them, and a more durable software system for them to utilize, what should they be able to see right now? What should a lot of, I know that some factories have different capabilities than other factories, but what level of transparency should they be able to expect? Or could they at least start talking to their suppliers, their forwarder, MBO? What could they provide for them?
That's a really good question. And I think that's what you really have to start at the beginning side of it. And it really comes down to your ability to collaborate with your supplier to determine and provide what the date that you can rely on and expect that goods to ship. And sometimes it is through the suppliers have portals themselves that you can work with. And we have clients out there, we ourselves provide this, but there's other systems out there as well that supply supplier portals that they can use, that you as a shipper can use to be able to collaborate with them as well, whether it be that, notification of saying, hey, we're expecting this to ship this date, on the 5th. Can you confirm that it will ship on the 5th? Can you tell us specifically, here's a list of items that we're expecting to be able to ship on this. Can you tell us which ones we can expect to ship on this particular container that will be leaving? So having that, those type of tools are absolutely essential to that. And they really are affordable. They're to a point where they're that it's, I don't want to say it's a no-brainer quite yet, but it is really close to that point where you collaborating with them in the beginning through technology in the beginning of the supply chain processes is absolutely essential.
And I know from our own experience here, and Ben could possibly touch on this too, the more visibility that we as a forwarder even have to see when the supplier's goods are going to be ready, when that stuff is going to be ready to ship, the more that we can forecast with our partners and the carriers and get everything aligned for one another and to get things moving through. I mean, Ben, we have partners overseas that you work with, and some, again, some are better than others, right? There are factories that we do get advance notice. These are the ready dates. This is happening. But, I just wanted some of your input here, what it would be like from your world if you're working and you're partnering with these importers where their suppliers have that type of transparency, what then you're able to provide.
Yes. A lot of procurement departments are focused on finding the right suppliers, and that's a big part of it, not just the product they make. It's how they communicate and how reliable they are in getting goods to them. Yeah, it's, as Tom touched on, change from the second to third trimester is the change from reactive to proactive. And one more thing I wanted to talk about is, you said that we have visibility with the ocean carriers, but what happens when the container outgate's empty? We don't know when the trucker is moving it, when they've got it loaded, until they've returned it back to the port, because then the ocean carrier website is acknowledging, oh, it's back loaded. But that could have been a day, could have been a week. Look at coming up on Chinese Golden Week last year. People remember truck lines were 5 to 15 miles long waiting to in-gate.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to know proactively this trucker just won't make it in because they're creeping ahead a couple miles a day in the terminal.
Yeah. In technology is you know, the onboard technology. At some point, every truck will have, and every trailer, every container, you know, a container if you're doing ocean shipping, whatever it might, or air shipping, whatever it might be, they will have that visibility. That's going to come. We know that that will be there. It's becoming, but it's, you know, again, that'll be in the third trimester of maturity of the, you know, of the technology with us. Today, you really have to rely on experience, trends, different things like that that are happening out there. And there's providers out there in the area of technology. They're called real-time visibility providers out there. And what they can do is they can offer that level of predictability on it, that because they're dealing with mega data, they're dealing with you know, hundreds of thousands of containers and you know, millions and millions of updates that they're receiving on that, to be able to look for trends of what are happening on that. So they might just have a sampling of trucks in queue, but at least, you know what, they have a sampling of it. They don't have all of them, but they have a sampling of those that they can take and say, okay, based on what we have, we think it's going to take, you know, it's going to take 2 days for that container to make it back into, you know, the port, wherever it might be, wherever it's destined to go.
Sure. And yeah, so I mean, we've spoken a little bit, we've touched on some of what the roadblocks are here, Tom, where there are these little loopholes. You know, it goes into a container yard, it gets off of a rail ramp. You can predict, and the end goal is to predict how long it is, as you're saying, in each one of those phases, each one of those stages. And, you know, does it differentiate from container yard to container yard? You know, is one container yard in Chicago a lot faster or slower than the other ones? You know, and then that opens up the consumer experience, the person that's buying the goods and moving them and hiring a forwarder to move it through Costco lines versus a different steamship line, and what rail ramps do they use and all that kind of stuff. So you can start to predict what you're going through. And, you know, it goes back to right now, we have been trying to push that onto our customers in the sense of we've been trying to help guide them as to this is your best option. If you need this here quickly, this is what we suggest you do. And that's based off of our personal experience. But what we're trying to push forward to in this third phase that you're discussing is to use real data, not the feelings and personal experiences that we've had, but use real data saying this is what you should expect with your experience.
And I would venture to say that partnering with your forwarder, such as yourself, in particular, if you're mid or small size, you know, smaller shipper with us, is really essential in that area, because the cost of the technology, the investment, the knowledge, everything that comes in with us is so mega right now that that really having a good partner that understands the technology that's out there, is selectively using that and applying it for your situations, as a shipper, for your situations, is absolutely critical for that. And they're going to be able to take the lead on it. They're going to be able to help interpret what it is and provide advice to you on those things with it. And frankly, the way you're doing it today, okay, is light years ahead of where you were 5 years ago. And guess what? 5 years from now, it's going to be way further along with us. And so, you know, partnering and through this third trimester, as things come, partnering with your forwarder is, unless you're a very, very large shipper, then perhaps you can invest in the technology yourself. But right now, and I think for the foreseeable future, it's going to be through companies such as yourself.
Well, we discussed this previously. You were actually giving Amazon and them some credit here as to how they've pushed this through, and they've given the end consumer this almost expectation of, I know where it is at all times, and I want to be able to expect down to the minute as to where it's going to be. And I think a lot of that is pushing through, as to what you were saying too, is it's pushing through and it's holding everyone else accountable of going, hey, why do you have all these roadblocks? If they can deliver all this stuff, you guys have to catch up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the shadow of Amazon is huge. I mean, it hits every particular area of commerce with this, not the least of which comes to last mile delivery. Nobody is further along in being able to deliver on on such a wide scale, such great visibility on last mile. Well, consumers have grown to expect that. And as an example, we have a last mile functionality with this. We have to be able to provide that type of capability for our client to be able to do that in the last mile segment. But what that's happened as well is you take a situation where you have these consumers are also the ones that are managing the logistics through the system. So they have an expectation and who they're serving, the internal, whether it be the distribution centers that work in your material planning department, all this, they now have higher expectations because of the shadow that Amazon has, that they've been under with us. So they're really today, it is evolving from a nice to have this visibility throughout the supply chain to an imperative. 5 years from now, every company will have to have some significant degree of visibility of their product all the way through. And you need, and if a company isn't doing that, they're going to be a laggard, because not just in what their customers' expectations are, not meeting those expectations, but as well as being able to manage cost effectively. Okay, there's there's absolute reason this is all comes to it, is to be able to reduce that price of the landed cost to the consumer, to whoever it is with that, the landed costs. And there's so many buried costs in delays in transit and and other interruptions.
We want to touch on a few like demurrage and per diem, these hidden costs that can creep up quickly when you don't have visibility, and it really impacts your landed cost. When $200, $300, $400 a day.
But everything from production lines being shut down, so they're waiting for product there. You've got staff, you've got production lines. We're talking about your customer doesn't have their goods when they need to. You have products that need to be on the shelves, and the shelves are empty, or whatever that could be. There's so many different scenarios, and so when we look at the price of something, what is the real price of that versus just looking at a quote that you're provided, and that kind of goes on to, if we back up for 1 second here, Tom. I guess when I'm thinking about this, and if I'm a viewer right now and I'm buying product, and right now, let's say I'm importing 200, 300, 500 containers a year, and sure, I might have some online tracking and tracing, but where would I start? What questions would I start to ask? Where would I go to say, hey, I want to start getting myself positioned to be in this area where I have visibility?
Yeah, I think you start by surveying your transportation providers and your forwarders on what their capabilities are, and identifying. So that's number one. So doing a survey, finding out what capabilities do they have. Do they have the ability? Do they have satellite systems with can their TMS provide you with a feed of data with this? So that side, what can each of them provide with us? And then the second thing to do is identify with having that information, identifying what is the most important aspects of that movement, each leg all the way through the supply chain with it. What are the most critical that you have a detailed level of visibility on? And so that's really important with us, to have those aspects. I'm going to answer those questions for that. The third thing is, what technology do I use to support this? Okay, and in today's world, one of the fastest growing area of technology is the whole transportation management systems. If you do not have a TMS system, I'm not trying to promote ours as well as it, but if you do not have some way to get that information and be able to have a full view of it from start to finish on it, just an ecosystem to be able to manage that in, you're at a disadvantage, or you will be at a disadvantage as it become more widespread with it, as well as getting that information to the people that need it. So it might be you need to be able to take that information and what's on that container, where that container is, and then put it into your ERP system, your warehouse management system, your distribution, your order management system. So those are the things of where you start.
Sure, it's really gathering everything and trying to put it all together. Realistically, is what it sounds like. You have so many different parties involved in every single step here. And you touched on multiple different softwares or management tools to begin with here, but that in itself includes so many different parties, from your supplier to your NVOCC, your forwarder, to your warehouse personnel, to your customers, I mean, there's just so many different hands to get involved with it. But that's where if I'm going to rephrase what you said, it's really writing that all down, mapping it out, and seeing who all those different parties involved are, for one, right? And then gathering the data to make sure that they're all communicating with each other.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, interesting stuff here. Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
So we're all entering this third trimester together. We're all getting onto advanced TMS software. So it's important to survey them and let them know your intent to move forward with this expectation.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And regardless of who you're using, right? Regardless of who you're using for that, I do want to throw this out there. There is that phase where you're putting it together with them. So if you were to contact us, you contact someone else, there is this phase where you're going to work and you have to map all this out. There is a startup cost to it. There's that beginning trial area where you're going to have to work with and partner up with people to do this and make this happen.
Yeah. I think when you're doing that, when you focus on the most critical areas of where you need visibility, where you need to relay information to, that's the first area they focus on where for your implementation plan on it.
Sure. And then I believe, Rachel, on the next slide here, I think we have some of the services available out there right now. I don't know, Tom, if you want to touch on a
Sure.
couple, or what you'd like to elaborate on here.
Sure. So this is Gartner's Magic Quadrant, and this Gartner is a technology and analysis company that looks at all the various software and technologies that are out there, and then annually they put together in all these different areas. I mean, you have them not just in the logistics area, but you have them for all aspects of software. So you might have it for a contact system of what's out there with that, your order management. So they have these different things with it. They put together this quadrant with us to say who are the players out there, who are the major players out there. They only concentrate on major players with it, and how good are they? Where are they with us? And in this case, this is what in the area they call real-time visibility. And that's different than transportation management software. That's a whole different area. So companies like ours most of them have some capability to give visibility within this, but they don't have the robust networks to be able to really develop and provide all those aspects we talked about, to be able to real comprehensive program with it. There's two major leaders out there right now, and they're Project 44 and 4Kites. And now we worked with all of them, as well as some of the other ones on it. I would put 4Kites as a better option than Project 44 with this for most companies, but it's very expensive. It is expensive that most companies, unless you're a large provider in relative to other investments that are being made in transportation, it's a significant per transaction cost, and it can vary from upwards of $50 to $80 or more per movement to be able to find that. But there again, there's also the return you get on it. So you have to look at the return, and they do provide an excellent return on that, even at a high cost with this. And then at the lower ends of it, you find other players that are in there with this. And, I look at some of these and familiar with them. I'm like, well, some I'd rate higher, some I'd rate lower on it. But, in today's environment, you can even get visibility and follow a driver's cell phone by following a driver's cell phone through a service like Descartes, which is MacroPoint. You can do it on it. We actually are developing for our clients the ability for through the TMS to be able to track a driver's cell phone with it, or their ELD systems, whatever it might be with that. So bringing that in there, the Project 44 and the 4Kites, they have the big advantage on the international network, that it's very robust. They're the ones that are tracking hundreds of thousands of containers per day, multiple times a day to figure out. They're the ones that are connecting up with all the different ports out there. The other ones there are just role players in it. There again, my suggestion is don't jump to one of these companies, but rather work with your forwarder, work with your TMS system, work with and help them put in perspective and help you identify where you need the most help with, and then help them or work with them to be able to put together strategies that might include a Project 44, might include a 4 Kites with us, or it might be just, hey, you just need to do a basic agreement with someone like a macro point to be able to track their, track by the driver's cell phone with it. So that's my recommendation on that.
Sure, very good. Well, Rachel, I know we try to leave a couple minutes here for some questions or however you'd like to wrap this up. So we'll move on to you.
For sure. Emily, I know, had a couple that she would like to ask Tom here, and then we'll close it up and get to you guys with all the other questions individually.
Yeah, so one that kind of pertains to this chart here is, Tom, can you clarify again, how come there are no visionaries on this chart, and your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I saw that too. It's probably the only of the Magic Quadrants I've ever seen that doesn't have visionaries with it. It's because technology is changing so fast, and the investment in it is so huge that you have to make to develop this network with it, that there isn't anybody that's saying that. People, I think for now, companies are just trying to catch up and say, hey, how can we take advantage of the technology that is out there right now, and to be able to bring it together with it. There are visionaries out there in that. I mean, but they're actually coming more from companies. I'll give you an example, but Best Buy, and I think I might have mentioned this, I can't remember if I did. They are using inventory in transit this goes way back to when they were doing with it. And there are areas coming up for companies that are saying, putting themselves in the place of the customer and saying, what is it that we can deliver it from it? They're the ones that are bringing to these providers that you see here, their requirements. And I just think it's so early in this development of this technology that the vision that we can only see where it is right now, not fully out.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom. We have some other questions, but unfortunately we kind of are short on time here. So we'll reach out to you guys individually on the rest, and we'll hand some off to Tom, the ones that are more towards Tom and what he went over today. But Tom, I appreciate all the time here. Couple other things before we close. Our next webinar here is going to be September 21st, the third Wednesday of September at 10 a.m. Central Time. So we do offer a monthly mailing list. So if you don't want to sign up each month, just email me at rachel@interlogusa.com. I'll get you on the list and you'll automatically be mailed our webinar each month. And then if you have any other questions as well, I didn't get it in the Q&A, you can reach out to us at sales@interlogusa or myself as well too. So everyone, thank you for coming and listening in today. Emily, Justin, Ben, Tom, it was a pleasure, and have a great